Hey, it's Keisha. Welcome and welcome back. We are on Prosperity's 10 Commandments, Commandment number 8. So let's take a moment and close our eyes and center, shall we? Let's take a deep breath in and out. And just release the cares, concerns, and busyness of the day. Another deep breath in and out. And now just see a column of white light coming down over you. Feel that light quickening the cells of your body, clearing your mind, opening your heart. And in this expanded space, when you're ready, gently open your eyes. So, Prosperity's 8th commandment. If I'm not mistaken, it was, thou shalt not seek something for nothing, analogous to thou shalt not steal. The person who is endeavoring to face life intelligently and still finds himself poverty-stricken may be laboring under karmic law. That's something we sometimes forget. If we're striving, we're doing everything right that we can, but we're still meeting with hardship. It may not be from this lifetime, it may be something karmic that we're resolving, but we meet it as constructively and as best we can. We ask that the law of grace restructure our miscreations and make easier to accept or to handle our karmic debt. And in some cases it resolves totally. So apply the law of grace where possible. Karma is an Oriental name for the results of working of the law of cause and effect. It is sometimes used as designating the law itself, but more commonly as a name for the consequences of the violation of the law. In one of its aspects, karma may be called a hangover or unfilled obligation, a reaping of the result of failing to keep a balance between giving and receiving. Wherever in this existence or in previous existence a person has reached out to take something for which he has given nothing in return, he is bound sooner or later to find himself in the position of giving but not receiving until the balance is restored. The law of karma, or cause and effect, is always transcended by the law of grace. Oh, here we go. Always remember that the law of grace is the action of spirit or the free gift of God's saving power responding to the call of faith. The bewildered person who finds himself in a position of giving his best and receiving no adequate return needs to learn to accept God as the only source of his supply. And that's why I said we meet it as best we can until the outworking of that particular sum is resolved. Trusting that it will be made right, and all of the work that you do now counts in that balance. He must covenant in his own heart to continue serving God by giving his best to the world in confident expectation of divine fulfillment of his every need. Such a willingly giving state of mind constitutes true repentance for those past violations of law that he may have already forgotten. He will find himself lifted out of the net of karmic difficulties through his spirit of service and his faith. Under the law of grace, every need is freely provided for, but we must give of our wisdom, love, and effort to handle intelligently that which the grace of God so freely supplies. Give we must, either before or after receiving. If we do not like what we are getting out of life, we must consider carefully what we are giving to life. If we feel that we cannot afford to be charitable and hate to pay debts, we are withholding our generosity, and life will not be so generous to us. We can always give in proportion to what we have, no matter how little it may be at any given time. If we do not have $10 to give, we can always find a place where 10 cents can be of value. And we give it cheerfully, and with utter confidence that since we are obeying God's law, His law will prosper us. When we think we are getting something for nothing, we are self-deceived. Sometime, somewhere, somehow, we pay for everything we receive. The following true story illustrates this fact in an amusing way. A woman with numerous relatives loved to travel and boasted that she never paid a hotel bill in the city where she had relatives. "What are relatives good for if you can't use them?" she was often heard to say. Her method was to descend upon them bag and baggage, taking it for granted they would be glad to see her. She would oftentimes chuckle over the fact that she was never called upon to return their hospitality because she lived in a single room in a hotel. The amount of money she saved on hotel bills in her travels was one of her favorite topics of discussion. But another frequent topic was the way people tried to take advantage of her financially. She always had to pay top price for everything. Salespeople always overcharged her. Even fate seemed to be against her. For if she went downtown and purchased a dress for $35, that same style of dress would be put on sale the very next day for $22.50. She was both astonished and indignant when told that she was violating God's law of compensation, which requires that we give generously for all that we receive. It was a new and not very welcome idea. That there was a definite connection between the way she treated her relatives and the way other people treated her. And how often do we sometimes discount or forget that our actions, though maybe not seen by others, are still registered by the universe, right? So yeah, nothing goes unseen. No debt goes unpaid. Jesus emphasized the necessity of giving either before or after receiving when he said, "Give, and it shall be given to you, and freely you receive, freely give." Obedience to these instructions of Jesus constitutes obedience to prosperity's 8th commandment and will keep us out of debt. If we run up bills by taking and using that for which we do not or cannot pay, we are violating this commandment as definitely as does the pickpocket, the confidence man, or the burglar. We may claim as much as we are capable of accepting of God's bountiful supply. This is the transaction in mind, and we must proceed to substantiate our claims in the realm of form. This is demonstration. For instance, if we desire a new car and we have faith that it is God's good will that we have it, we must show our faith by our works. That is, we must demonstrate either the money to pay for it or the ability to earn the money. In other words, we have no right to take something in the realm of form when we have only our undemonstrated faith to pay for it in the realm of mind. We must give for value received in such a way that the one from whom we receive is satisfied. This was interesting only because if, say, for instance, we're manifesting a car, we may not immediately have the money to pay for it, but we open the way to be able to fulfill that portion of the bargain by meditating on the idea of the car that we have, or meditating on the idea of the car that we would like, spending time thinking about what our lives will look like when we have that particular vehicle, perhaps going on a test drive or looking at it online, or that sort of thing, visualizing ourselves as driving it, paying attention to the fact that once we've decided on a particular vehicle, we're more likely to see them everywhere we go and notice them all around us, and appropriate it in such a way that if it is available to others, then God rains down on the just and unjust alike, then what's given to another can also be given to me. Then we are building interest in the direction of receiving the car. And then, because when we get to a tipping point of having built enough interest, then a way comes forth in which to manifest it. And I'll give you an example from my life. When I came back from South Korea, I didn't have a job, and I had just a few $1,000s in the bank. An idea of what I wanted to do, but not really, and certainly, like I said, no job. But I had been given this idea to do the checkbook register exercise given by Abraham, where each day you deposit $1,000 and then spend that money and then each day add another 1,000 to it. So the next day you're spending 2,000. So you're getting used to the idea of spending more money. And so in my checkbook register that first day, I deposited $1,500. And when I was thinking about, okay, if I had $1,500, what would I do with it? My first ledger note was to make a down payment on a car. And just before I got into the idea of using the checkbook register, I had been thinking about what kind of car I wanted, and I made my decision. I wanted a BMW 3 Series. And sure enough, like once I decided on that particular car, everywhere I went, I was seeing one. And I'm not kidding, like everywhere. And I remember at one point I was driving down 285, and on all 4 sides, I was surrounded by 3 Series BMW. And I think I had decided it was going to be silver. But I was surrounded by 4 BMWs. And it was at that point that I was like, because I've been seeing them consistently up until then, but when I saw that happen, I was like, yeah, this is working. This is happening. It's going to happen. I can see this now. Everywhere I go, they're present. And so I was even more excited about it. And that excitement, of course, is building interest because the feeling is the thing. The feeling is the secret. You've read Neville. And sure enough, I got a deposit into my bank account one day. And it was, I don't know, maybe $1,800 or something like that. And it was for work that I'd done while I was in Korea that I wasn't expecting. But as soon as I received, I was like, oh yeah, right. And I was like, oh my God, I have all this money. What am I going to do with it? Oh, I can buy this, I can buy that, I can do this. And I was like, no, let me go back to my checkbook register to see what I would do if I got $1,500. Because that's an important point that I don't think anybody ever talks about with manifestation. And that is the need to be faithful to your word. And I'll come back to that with another example in a minute. But anyway, so I'm like, all right, this is $1,500. I'm supposed to go use this to put down a down payment on my car. And the next day I went to the BMW dealership and ended up with a 3 Series coupe that I absolutely loved. And the way came forth for me to make the payments on it. So yeah, that's one example of manifestation. The example that I was going to come back to, what was that related to? Being faithful to your word. Oftentimes we will say, oh my God, if I just got this money, I would do this with it. And then we get the money and some other pressing need comes up and there it goes, right? And so, or we change our minds and we think differently about what we want to spend it on. And then sometimes we wonder why it becomes difficult to manifest, because if you're saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do when I get the money, and you get the money and then you go do something else with it, that's not showing fidelity to your word, right? And so I can remember one time, this was when I was, that fine line between self-employed and unemployed. I was having difficulty meeting my bills, but I was, with God's help, thankfully, meeting them. But it was, to my mind, a struggle because I hadn't yet built the faith that I can rely on God for my supply. But that's what I was going through that helped me build that faith. So it was part of that process. Anyway, I had some bills to meet. But that morning I had stopped by Whole Foods to pick up a supplement or something that I needed. And I was only getting that thing. It wasn't like I could go to Whole Foods and have some fun. But I happened to have seen a really pretty Radius toothbrush. And I know that sounds silly, a pretty toothbrush, but if you've seen Radius toothbrushes, they already have an unusual look about them. And this particular one was an apricot color, and I'd never seen an apricot color toothbrush before. And oh my God, it was just so pretty. I wanted it. And what I said to myself was, if I get fresh money today, I'm coming back and I'm getting this toothbrush. Now keep in mind, toothbrush is $10. So that's another issue. Like, why the hell am I spending $10 on a toothbrush when I have one? I don't necessarily need it, but I still wanted it, right? So it was a Monday and I was having office hours at a metaphysical office. So I was doing healing work and offering counseling and readings and stuff like that. And my business had been slow because I was still building my business and my clientele. But so I go into the office, and pretty much something happened all day. And then I had a client, and oh no, I had some hairpins because I also was selling my jewelry at the same time. And a friend or client or somebody came in and had asked me about my jewelry. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll show it to you. And so I got it out of the trunk and I showed it to him. And they picked out like 5 or 6 hairpins that I was selling, and at the time they were like $10. So all of a sudden, no, it was whatever they bought. I know they got a couple of hairpins, but I know what they bought. It came to $36. And I was like, cool, that's enough to pay blah, blah, blah bill. And I was so excited about that. And then I remembered, no, what I said was if I got fresh money today, I was going to go back to Whole Foods and buy that toothbrush. And I thought about that for a minute. Do I pay this bill that was already looming? Not, well, it couldn't have been a lot because, the $36 was going to cover it. Or do I stay true to my word and go buy this toothbrush that I don't particularly need at the moment, but I said if I got fresh money today, I would get it. And I was like, you know what? If I am trying to believe in God for the bigger thing and trusting that I will be provided for, then I need to be faithful to my word and trust that I will be provided for. And what I reasoned was that by me trusting that I could go and spend the $10 of that 36 on this toothbrush, that I was demonstrating my faith and my fidelity to money. And that would open the way for a greater sum to come to me, that this other bill would be taken care of. And so when it was lunchtime, I went back up to Whole Foods and I bought my toothbrush. And I didn't feel bad about it. It felt a little weird, but I didn't feel bad. And I didn't berate myself like, why are you spending $10 on a toothbrush when you've got this bill to pay? And sure enough, and I don't remember exactly what happened, but something happened and the money came forth for me to pay that other bill. And so I definitely encourage you. And, when I'm writing my book, there will certainly be a chapter on the need to be faithful to your word when it comes to money, because I can tell you for sure that is one of the most basic and most important lessons that I have learned in this journey of how to manifest a supply. And that has been, if I say this is what I'm going to spend my money on, spend it on that. And everything else takes care of itself. I think that's a good place for us to stop for the moment. There is just a little bit left of the 8th commandment, but we'll pick that up on Friday. And I think a little light reading on Friday is probably best anyway. So we will leave it there. I will see you in 2 days, and I will love you in the meantime. Bye.